Koi Perich might be one of the most electric defensive backs in next year's draft conversation. Two-way phenomenon from Esko, Minnesota. Scored 27 touchdowns as a senior, won MVP of the All-American Bowl, signed with Minnesota as a top recruit in the state, and then immediately became one of the most decorated freshmen in the country. 5 interceptions as a true freshman, earning freshman All-American honors, first team All-Big Ten, second team All-American, and the return game juice on top of it. But then 2025 got complicated. The role expanded, the production dipped. He missed 23 tackles, gave up 455 yards, and his zone coverage tape took a real step back. Now he transfers to Oregon, and the question is simple. Can the Ducks unlock the freshman playmaker again while cleaning up the tackling and coverage discipline? Today we're breaking down Koi Perich, my safety number 10, why the upside is so real, and why the floor is not as clean as the highlight reels make it seem. But before we get into that, make sure you hit the like button, follow, subscribe, and make sure that you turn on your notifications because we're going to keep putting in this work here at Draft Yoda on our way to 100 prospects before college football kicks off. Koi Perich is currently sitting at an 8.73 out of 10, number 78 overall, safety number 10 on my board. And this is one of the most fun but most dangerous safety evaluations on the board. Because if you start with the good, it's very easy to get excited. You know, the ball skills are real, athleticism is real, the return value is real, two-way background is real. The freshman production was just spectacular. And when he is locked in, he can look like one of the most dynamic defensive backs in college football. But the 2025 tape brought some serious concerns. You know, was this just a small sophomore slump, or is the tackling a major issue? Zone coverage took a major step back. You know, the interception production dropped. And when a safety misses that many tackles and gives that much yardage up, you can't just shrug it off because the freshman year was special. You know, coming out of Esko, Minnesota, it's a tiny school, big-time athlete. You know, and in high school, he was the kind of player who did everything. Offense, defense, return kicks, scored touchdowns, changed games. Scored 27 total touchdowns as a senior. You know, all-purpose weapon. He wasn't just a safety, he was a football player. Went on to win the All-American Bowl MVP, and that's a major statement. And then went to Minnesota, which was a smaller program, but is started in the recent years to really gain some traction. You know, and people wondered how the game translated against national talent. And Perich answered that. He showed it up real fast as a freshman. You know, 5 interceptions. Second team All-American, first team All-Big Ten. It's a ridiculous freshman resume. Most true freshman safeties are just trying to survive. Perich was taking the ball away and earning national honors. That kind of ball production matters. 5 interceptions as a freshman is not luck. You have instincts, you can track the ball, you can understand spacing. And it shows that you can finish when the chance comes. And Perich did that immediately. Also doubled as a dangerous return man, which added another layer to his profile. You know, the return value matters. It tells you how dynamic he is with the ball in his hands. Some safeties are good athletes. Perich is a playmaker. There's a difference. When he gets the ball, he is dangerous. When he is in the return game, he can flip field position. When he gets offensive touches, he has a real two-way ability. And that's why the ceiling is so exciting with him. He's not just a defensive back that happens to be athletic. He's an all-purpose football player who can impact the game in multiple phases of the game. But 2025, the evaluation got more complicated. His workload grew, his involvement on the defense grew. He stayed involved in the run game and even flashed occasional offensive value, but the defensive production got quieter, 58 tackles, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble, and a game-winning defensive score in the homecoming win over Purdue. The game-winning play matters. It reminds you that the playmaker's still in there. But the overall season was not as clean as his freshman year. The interception total dropped from 5 to 1. The tackling became a major issue, which we'll discuss in a minute. And the coverage tape, especially in zone, raised some real questions. We'll get into that too. After 2025, he entered the transfer portal and he landed at Oregon. And honestly, this is a fascinating reset because Oregon is going to give him a bigger national stage, better athletes around him, a defensive structure that can help define his role, and a chance to rebuild the perception after the sophomore regression. And that's the key word for Koi this year is reset. He doesn't need to prove that he can make plays. He's done that. He needs to prove he can become more dependable, snap in and snap out. Obviously, the first thing that jumps off the page is the playmaking. He's a dynamic athlete with rare college production, 6 career interceptions already, 5 as a true freshman, 2 interceptions off of California in a single game. It's the kind of production that keeps players on a draft board, even when the rest of the tape gets messy. You can't teach natural playmaking. Some players just find the ball, and Perich has shown that. He can track it, he can finish, and he can flip a possession. His man coverage over the slot is solid. This is where the defensive projection gets interesting because he can stick on the hip. He can stick in the hip pocket in man coverage. And that matters because modern safeties are asked to cover more than they ever have. They have to match up with tight ends, with slots. They have to carry routes. They have to survive in space. And Perich has shown his athletic ability to be able to do that. The downhill burst as well. He closes fast. He triggers downhill. He can chase plays to the sideline. He can fill in the run. He recorded 21 run stops, which tells you he's involved around the line of scrimmage. When he sees it clearly, he goes. And when he goes quickly. And then the return game. It's not a throwaway note. For a developmental safety, return ability matters a lot. It gives you an early NFL pathway. A team is more likely to keep you around as a developmental defensive player if you add value in special teams. And you've already shown that you can do that in the return game, But nobody's perfect. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. First thing is the tackling. It's the biggest issue in this evaluation. 23 missed tackles in one season is severe. And as a safety, missed tackles are expensive. Safeties, if a linebacker misses a tackle, the safety's supposed to be able to catch it. If the safety misses, it's a touchdown. Perich has to clean that up. He arrives quickly. He can get to the right area, but he has to finish. That's piece number 1 for him. Number 2 concern is the zone coverage. It was below average in 2025. And that's a problem for a safety because safeties live in zone structures typically. They have to understand spacing. They have to keep their eyes disciplined. They have to read route combinations. With Perich, his eyes drifted quite a bit in 2025. And when that happens, big plays open from depth. And that's dangerous, It's the reason that the grade is at an 8.73 instead of climbing closer to where his athletic ceiling says it should be. Giving up 455 yards allowed is way too much, especially for a safety with this kind of talent. Some of that comes from the zone issue. Some of it comes from the tackling, and some of it comes from the expanded workload. But whatever the reason, the result matters. A safety can't be both a missed tackle risk and a coverage risk. That creates too many explosive plays. the interception drop from 5 to 1, it does not mean the ball skills disappeared, but it does show that the freshman production may not be the baseline. Defenses and quarterbacks adjust, roles change, opportunities change, and when the workload grows, the splash plays don't always come as easily. That's one of the things that I'm looking for in 2026. Is he 2026? The move to Oregon is huge. For me, the checklist is pretty clear for him. Cut the missed tackles dramatically, improve the size, improve zone discipline, keep your man coverage value, create takeaways again, limit some big plays, keep adding, the return game, and prove the freshman season was closer to the real player than the sophomore regression. If you do that at Oregon with the spotlight on you, you're going to climb in the draft class. You are. As a safety, this is probably one of the biggest boom or bust safeties in this draft class coming up. He has the ability to be his freshman self, which should put him much higher in the safety class, or his sophomore self, which will drop him from here. Oregon gets to show which way he goes. Currently sitting in 8.73 out of 10, number 78 overall, safety number 10. He's a dynamic safety and a return weapon with rare all-purpose playmaking, 6 career interceptions, man coverage ability over the slot, downhill burst, and the kind of ball skills that make him one of the most decorated freshmen in the country. But the concerns are also clear. The missed tackles is a major problem. 23 missed tackles is severe. Surrendering 455 yards is insanely bad. Zone coverage was below average. And the defensive role still needs to settle into what it is. So this evaluation is a bet. I'm betting on the athlete, the playmaker, and the return value. I'm betting that Oregon can clean up the tackling and the coverage discipline. And if that bet comes in, Koi Perich is going to climb from safety 10. But until it does, he remains one of the most exciting and risky safety evaluations on the board. That's what I think of Koi Perich. What do you think of Koi Perich? Is he one of the best playmaking safeties in college football? Can Oregon clean up the tackling and unlock that freshman version of himself again? How much should return value and ball skills matter when the 2025 safety tape had so many issues? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and follow along if you like these player evaluations, because we're on our way to 100 and we're well on our way. I'm Draft Yoda. I'm Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.